Makes up for how bad they did on Main Street.
Okay, we're live.
Good evening, everyone, and a happy new year and a healthy new year to come. This is the January 6th Planning Board meeting. And for those listening, we have a new member of the Planning Board, Michael Smith, who's attending for the first time tonight. And you know the other members is Dan McGillicott, Kevin Thurman, George Boyle, and myself, Cesar Manfredi, Chair. As the board members, first question, Sarah, taxes all up to date with the applicants?
Yes.
Has the minutes went out today? I don't know if everybody had a chance. Did everybody have a chance to read the minutes except for Mike? He wasn't at the last meeting.
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the minutes of December what was it? December what?
December 2nd.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of December 2nd, 2020. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor except Mike Smith?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let's give the order of appearance. Number one will be 2020-30, 63 Field Terrace. Number two will be 2020-29, 47 Osceola Avenue. Number three will be 2020-28, 12 South Ecker Street. Number four,
32 South Ecker.
I'm sorry, 32. Thanks. Number four is 2020-23, 2 South Astor Street. Number five will be 2021, 24 North Astor Street. Number six, 2021-01, 19 Matheson Park. Number seven, 2021-06, 51 Manapon Lane. Number eight, 2021-05, 26 Willow Street. Number nine, 2021-04, 129 Rutta Dubois Lane. Number 10, 2021-03, 24 Bonnie Park. And number 11, which is not on the printed agenda, is 16 North Astor. All right, do we have the applicant present for number one, 2020-30, 63 Field Terrace?
Yes.
Mute, start video. Sorry about that. Good evening, Douglas McClure for the trenchers at 63 Field Terrace. We've made some revisions to the drawings, which you have. We've also received the comments from Han Engineering. It appears to us that the comments are relatively addressable, and we can coordinate with Hudson and Han offline to get those resolved. I don't believe there's anything major in those comments. Other than that, if there's some questions about the design, I can turn this over to Renee. But we would like to ask for your approval and to send us off to the Zoning Board of Appeals so we can address some of those issues.
Last meeting, if you recall, we had an issue with the potential of noise from the location of the equipment. So one of you go over what was submitted so that we could get it into the record as to what was done, and then the board will contemplate over it. So I think Renee.
You're muted, Renee.
Mute. There you go.
That should work. Good evening.
Good
Hi, all.
evening. Let's do the simple thing first.
Oh, sure.
The 32-inch oak at the corner of the building in the front. That's
Yes.
been taken care of.
Yes, in my opinion, absolutely.
Okay, now go with the equipment.
So regarding the sound attenuation, so we spoke with the pool engineers, the electrician about the generator, and it was determined that the location that we had the equipment made the absolute best, most practical sense, and also from a sound attenuation standpoint, because we had the masonry enclosure. So we had, I have an acoustic consultant who's quite good, who we used before, by the name of Joe Fatora of Vibra Sciences, and he wrote an opinion letter, which is in your packet. He recommended some 2-inch thick material. They're sound tiles. I believe it's called Fawn Stop. And those are affixed directly to the masonry itself, all the way down from the top of the wall to the bottom on the inside. And he provided the calculations, but the perceptible noise at the property line goes way, way down, and the noise all the way over at
The
the
projected
neighbor's
noise-
house is
The
almost,
projected noise.
the projected noise is negligible all the way over at the nearest neighbor, which is approximately, I believe, 70 feet away.
Now,
So,
concerning that, you said that the recommendations, is there someplace on the plans that the recommendations have been accepted and will be implemented?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite following what you're asking. Is
Well,
there?
you said, yeah, the letter may be acceptable,
Yes,
but you said it was recommendations. Is there someplace that the
Oh.
applicant has committed to doing what the recommendations said?
correct. Yes, that Fawn Stop detail is now shown on the sheet. Would you like me to bring it up, or I can share the screen
Doug,
and show you that?
Not Doug, Doug Hahn. Did you see that on the sheet?
I did.
Okay, that's okay, Renee, as long as one of us saw it.
Okay. Yes,
It's on, just for you, Caesar, just so you know, it's on sheet L40, I believe.
L4.
L4, sorry, L4.0.
Mhm.
Okay,
I can't see.
all right, go ahead.
That's about all I was going to say about it. He provided the decibel
There's
reduction at
also
the
the
property line and then farther.
The maintenance issue in your letter, you sort of covered it a little bit in your item 30 on your letter. Maybe you could read some of that or go into that,
Hang
please.
on a second. Let me just pull that over because I have that up on my other screen right here. Sorry, I gotta look at this here. Okay, item 30. Yes, so that's the two. Are you talking about item 30, number 1, which is the heights of all the site walls, or are you referring
No,
now
I'm
to
talking
the
about
generator?
the need for maintenance
Yes, so the need for maintenance is
and
that,
access.
correct. So the pool equipment will need access once or twice a week for servicing, and the generator will need less servicing, but the cost of trenching all the way across the lawn is prohibitive. But what we found out is that I realized at the last meeting, when we were sort of trying to improvise and brainstorm another potential location, we now have, and I'm happy to share the screen and bring it up, but we provided on our LO, our site calculation, our data sheet, we diagrammed in the proposed drawing, there is really a very narrow sliver. Now that we have redrawn our setbacks properly, there's almost no as of right location. So we're kind of stuck with it. So we might as well use the optimum one. And let me bring that up. I think it's an interesting drawing. Hang on a second. Let me just give me 1 second. I think I can do it.
This is another test of your electronic skills.
I know. I didn't think you would remember that, but all right. Okay, let's see. Here we go. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, hopefully that's legible for everyone. Get my spotlight. So with the front setback being established by this back corner of the garage, but running parallel to Field Terrace, we come out with our line running, our front yard setback running here. Then we have the the side yard setback or rear yard in this case being right here. So this leaves this pink area as the as of right location for the pool and the generator. So as you can see, there's really no space within that zone to locate the equipment. Thus, we found this area to be the absolute best because it has access to the driveway. It provides the sound attenuation of the walls, and helps create sort of a nice little, private courtyard upon entry. So,
Renee, didn't I read that you were also adding evergreens?
oh, we've added a lot of evergreen. They're not shown. This is that they are shown on the planting plan. This diagram is.
Yeah, I know,
part-
but
is-
I'm
is
just
the
saying
coverage.
because the Vibra Sciences referred to them.
Yes, I could pull those up. They're shown on the planting plan.
Okay. No, but
Do-
you don't need to pull them up, but just
Okay.
explain about the evergreens and the sound attenuation.
Yes, well, the evergreens, it is, the evergreens are going to be located right in this zone along here. And then we have the taller ones running along here in the 20-foot setback. So we're providing some tall American hollies that will go here. We have kind of a narrow space. This is an existing pull out or backup jug handle that we are retaining. So we have this leftover space in which to put the evergreens, and it works quite well to screen. So visually, and we also provided an elevation looking that direction, which is also in our packet. I don't have the number right here, but I can show you. And so when you look this way, you have kind of a very nice elevation of this all being green, this being a nice iron fence with the evergreens right behind it. And then we can have a couple of vines and things to soften the front of the metal fence.
Okay. Renee, you can tell your colleagues you got an A+ tonight.
Oh, boy. Thank you so much.
I'd like to poll the board. Dan, you have any questions?
No, I think the noise issue was mitigated with the sound tiles. So I'm okay with everything.
Kevin?
Kevin, you're on mute.
I had one question about just out of curiosity in the village, what does the village code say about decibel levels? Is there anything in the code that specifies decibel level limits?
We have a code section and they're meeting it at the property line right now.
Okay.
But, if it's noisier than what they said, it's going to be a problem for them.
Okay. That's my only question. Thank you. Otherwise, I'm good with everything.
George, this was your question last meeting. You have any comments?
Yeah, no, I think that as long as they understand the risk here, that there is an issue with the noise code for Irvington that they have to kind of abide by. But I will comment about the remark about, well, there is no other place for it. That's sort of self-imposed. It's really about your design that has caused that, not that the site has caused it. So I wouldn't use necessarily that argument for what you're doing, in my opinion. But no, I would agree with Kevin that there is a code that you have to abide by, and you have to abide by it. And if the neighbors complain, then the neighbors complain, and you'll have to address it at that time. But in my opinion, this is a self-induced design issue that not.
You have any issues with moving forward on this, George?
No.
All right, Mike,
I have no issues.
Sarah, any members of the public out there?
Nobody's raising their hand and there's no comments in the chat.
Okay, Mary Ann, do we have a resolution for this?
Yeah. Whereas in November 2020, Barbara and Daniel Trencher applied for site development plan approval to construct a pool, patios, retaining walls, walks, and a stormwater management system at their property at 63 Field Terrace. And whereas the proposal requires variances for coverage, the rear yard setback and location of the pool closer to the street than the rear of the building. And whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated November 30th listed a number of issues, most of which were satisfactorily addressed in a subsequent submission. And whereas the village's landscape consultant reviewed the plans and made a number of comments and recommendations which were addressed in a subsequent submission to her satisfaction. Whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on December 2nd, 2020, and January 6th, 2021. Whereas the planning board asked the applicants to consider moving the generator and pool equipment farther from the property line. And whereas the applicants responded that the equipment would be screened by a brick wall matching the house, the addition of acoustical tiles to the masonry wall, and the planting of additional evergreens to encompass the generator and equipment area, and submitted a report from an acoustical consultant, Vibra Sciences Incorporated, which stated that given the wall and the evergreen screening, the sound from the pool equipment would not be detectable at all at the neighboring residence, and the sound from the generator would be inaudible to very low. And whereas it's type 2 action under secret and therefore requires no environmental review, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Site Improvements for the Trencher Residence prepared by McSee Architecture and Renee Byers, and the drawings entitled Proposed Pool and Alterations prepared by Hudson Engineering and Consulting, and I have all the drawings listed. Subject to 1, obtaining variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals for coverage, rear yard setback, and location of pool, and 2, complying with the items listed in the Han memorandum dated January 4th, 2021.
Do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to approve resolution.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll poll the board because we're on Zoom. Dan, your turn to vote. Oh, and when you vote, you must add authorization to Sarah to sign.
Motion, I do accept the motion and I designate Sarah to sign for me.
Kevin,
Vote in favor of the motion and authorize Sarah to sign on my behalf.
George,
Yes, and authorize Sarah.
Mike Smith,
Yes, and I authorize Sarah.
this is Caesar Manfredi. I say yes and authorize Sarah to sign for me. Okay, thank you, applicant. You may go, and we'll go to.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you all
Steph.
very much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Happy New Year.
Happy
Yes.
New Year. Good night.
Good night. Number 2, 47 Osceola Avenue. We have an applicant.
Yes.
Hi, good evening. Happy New Year.
Same to you.
I'm here with homeowner Gemma Hart. And if I can share my screen, I'll make a very brief presentation. We're responding to comments from our hearing last month. Is the screen being shared? So we added a north arrow. Again, it's a very simple project. We're adding 75 square feet, filling in this area under the roof. Residential project. There was a question about impervious area. We're removing all of this concrete right here. It's a little planting area. It's 100 square feet of concrete that we're removing. These stepping stones are about 60 square feet of area, so it's a net decrease of impervious area because this will just be landscaping. And then there is existing sconce right here on the garage, and we're removing this sconce because we're filling out. There's a sconce here, and we're proposing 2 new sconces, and they are fully shielded at the top. This is the existing sconce already on the house. We're adding 2 more at the driveway, and that's the spec on the sconce. I think those are really the only open issues. Here's the elevation.
Sorry, were those on there or did we
Beg your
or did
pardon?
you add them?
Sorry, what's the question? In the previous submission, I just said we'd have fully shielded sconces. I wasn't aware what the homeowner had selected, but this is the actual sconce that's on the house now, and we're just matching it.
So we haven't seen this, that's all. I'm asking.
Oh, right, yes. I got your letter yesterday, so quick
Is
response.
is the new light dark sky compliant?
It is. It's completely shielded at the top.
Doug, most of the issues from last meeting were engineering issues. Are they solvable?
Oh, yeah, they're minor, I'd say.
Okay, any comments from the board? Dan?
I have
Thank you
none.
very much for the presentation. Dan?
No comments here, Susan.
Kevin?
Oh, thank you.
George?
Actually, no.
Mike?
No, thanks.
I have no comment. And any comment from the public there, Sarah?
There's nobody raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, I believe Mary Ann has a resolution prepared.
Yeah. Whereas in November 2020, Christopher Cheatham applied for site development plan approval to enclose a covered entryway on his house at 47 Osceola Avenue, and was the proposal does not increase the footprint of the house and increases FAR only slightly, but within permitted limits. And whereas Hunt Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated November 30th listed a number of issues, most of which were satisfactorily addressed in a subsequent submission. The village's landscape consultant reviewed the plans and found no impacts on trees. The planning board held a public hearing on the application on December 2nd and January 6th. It's a type 2 action under secret, so requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled 47 Osceola Road, prepared by James Coleman Architecture Studio, subject to complying with the items listed in the Hahn memorandum dated January 4th, 2021.
We have a motion to approve the resolution as read.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All right, we'll poll the board for the vote. Dan?
I vote in favor of the motion and designate
And-
Sarah as sign form.
And you got Sarah?
Yes, it designates Sarah.
Kevin?
I vote in favor and authorize Sarah.
George?
Yes, send Sarah, please. Sign for me.
Yes, and I authorize Sarah.
Caesar, yes, and authorize Sarah to sign. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation, and you're on your way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
You can sign off when you get a chance. Sarah, do we have someone for the number 332 South Ecker Street? Mr. Coleman, you can sign off if you want.
I'm trying to, apologies.
I'll have him signed off in a second.
Yeah.
If you're here to represent 32 South Ecker, if you could please hit the raise hand button, and I'll promote you to a panelist.
Thank you.
Brandon, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Great. Good evening, everyone.
Not getting any video.
How's that?
There you go.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
yes, I can
Great,
see you too.
great. Good evening. We got the comments from Han Engineering and also the village landscape architect. And it appears to me that we've got some revisions to make on the drawings and also the cover letter, so as to ensure that the two documents reflect the same information. We did make some slight changes to the construction methods of the driveway, whereas previously we had just requested pea gravel, and due to the existing grade, it's about 12%. we decided to put some concrete permeable pavers in so as to achieve some kind of traction. So
Glad you did that because I was of the same opinion that you were going to have trouble coming up on gravel.
yeah, and it was a good suggestion. I think that you were right about that. So going back and speaking to my engineer, we came up with the idea of permeable paving stone. So we have to update the detail on that. And what I'll do is I'll go to the manufacturer and ask for a spec on that material to ensure that it can be installed at the existing grade.
All right, the landscape arborist comment was concerned for the 8-inch tree at the bottom of the driveway that it needs protection around the roots.
Yep, so that we'll revise the drawings to accommodate that 12-foot radius as required. And whatever impact that's going to have on the driveway, of course, that's going to be reflected on the revision of the drawing.
Is there going to be any lighting on the new driveway?
Good question. No, I don't think that there will be.
Okay. All right, any comment from the board? Dan?
I have no comments either.
Kevin?
No, thank you.
George?
Only one is to the applicant himself, is that you understand what the engineer is saying about the slope and the issues with that.
I do.
Okay.
Mike?
No, thanks.
And I have no comment. Sarah, anything from the public out there?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Doug, the engineering issues that he discussed, that can be resolved, that's resolvable stuff?
Yeah, yep. It can be addressed.
Okay, Mary Ann, I believe we have a resolution.
Yeah, I just want to check with Doug and Ed though, because tonight, Mr. Hall said something about maybe he had to have samples of the material to make sure it didn't work or that it would work. If it doesn't, what you guys can deal with whatever substitute or whatever.
There's other types of pavers. The ones I believe they're using, they could have some issues in the transitions. You know, you may get a little point that sticks up or.
Okay. But that's something you guys can deal with once you get the spec sheet.
Yeah.
Okay. You're comfortable with that, Ed?
Yeah, there's many different products. You might have to switch the product name, but it's the same principle.
Okay. Okay. All right. Whereas in October 2020, Brandon Hall applied for site development plan approval to install a driveway and curb cut on his property at 32 South Becker Street. And whereas the curb cut would eliminate an on-street parking space and thus require approval from the Board of Trustees, which the board granted on December 21st, 2020. Hahn Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated November 2nd listed a number of issues, many of which were satisfactorily addressed in a subsequent submission. The village's landscape consultant reviewed the plans and made several recommendations which were addressed to her satisfaction in the subsequent submission. The planning board held a public hearing on the application on November 4th and January 6th. It's type 2 action under SECRA. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawing entitled Proposed Driveway at 32 South Ecker Street, prepared by Stephen A. Costa, subject to complying with the items listed in the Hahn memorandum dated January 4th, 2021.
We have a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second, somebody?
Second.
All right, here's the vote. Dan?
I vote in favor.
Kevin?
Resolution.
And Sarah?
Designate Sarah as to sign for me.
Kevin?
I vote in favor and authorize Sarah.
George?
I vote in favor and authorize Sarah.
Mike?
Voted in favor and authorize Sarah.
Caesar votes yes and authorizes Sarah. Okay, you're all done there, Brandon.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, number 4 is 2020-23, 2 South Astor Street.
If anybody's here representing 2 South Astor Street, can you please hit the raise hand button? Nobody's raising their hand.
Is John Malone around?
Malone's not there?
Malone, maybe
I do
Wada.
not see him, no. Oh, somebody's, oh. There's somebody.
There's Claudia and Earl.
Yeah, Ubata raised his hand to speak.
Roberta, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I thought the architect was going to be here, but as far as the plans, I'm pretty sure we've addressed most of the
Excuse me,
comments.
could you please identify yourself first?
Sorry, Albeda from Hudson Engineering.
I didn't hear the name. Could you say it more clearly?
Yep, Albeda from Hudson Engineering.
Okay.
With regards to the plan, we've made the changes per the Han memo that we got last time around. We provided the profiles. We've adjusted the minor drainage changes that Han had commented on. I'm not sure if there's any other significant comments that you guys have.
Well, there's the
Yeah.
issue. There's the issue of ADA compliance. I'm not sure you fully addressed that. And
I can't
Ed-
speak to that quite honestly.
Okay.
I'll have to reach out to the architect to see if they're online or something.
And there were issues, some questions on the EAF, the environmental assessment form, that needed to be addressed, that were not the answers, or were either not. Mary Ann, you wanted to say they were either not
Yeah,
there or?
they were just minor, but actually there were more significant comments from Han. Han had quite a few significant
Yeah.
comments on
Yeah.
this.
And then there was grades, the grading around the stairwell.
Was there a more recent memorandum that was circulated?
Yeah, they
Doug,
just,
Doug, you want to handle that?
Well, I mean, I think the main thing, the easement is still being, I don't know, the
Verified,
easement's
yep.
still being reviewed. We need some retaining wall details for the wall on the northwest side of the building. The gas main should be included. Elevations on the retaining walls and the stair details. Wanted to get some additional information on the soil testing, so we added some required to that. And some grading. Those are the main.
Okay.
I mean, there are some minor stuff on the EAF that should be revised, and like Caesar said, ADA compliance on the inside. Again, I think that would be John Malone. So, well,
I think somebody's on for Malone. I see Claudia and Earl. But they're both muted. Caesar, and board, just so you know, I did talk with John Malone about the easement agreement yesterday, because I have a couple of issues with it. I didn't exactly match. Ed, you raised the issue with the parking space, those parking spaces, and the easement agreement is not exactly right. So I said, what is his name? John had not been talking directly with the attorney who's preparing it, so I'm not sure they understood it 100%. So my suggestion was that John Malone speak with that attorney and make sure he gets it straight. And there had to be a couple labeling, but we're not far from agreement on it.
You're addressing the legal agreement between two different owners. Is that correct?
Yes, because they need access over the other property. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess this will have to come back.
Yeah.
Any questions, any other questions from the board before we ask them to do their homework and come back? Dan?
I have no questions.
Kevin,
No.
George,
Nope.
Mike,
No questions.
none for me. Anything in the public, Sarah?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
All right, well, come back to do your homework, and we'll see you next month.
All right, thank you.
That was number 4. Going on to number 5, 2021-02, 24 North Astor Street. I believe the people for Astor are still on. Number 2 South Astor is still on. If you could
Yeah,
sign off.
And I saw David Steinmetz was there, but he's not in here. Rado Pacic is, but not Steinmetz.
Mary Ann, do you see him? I don't.
He's about to.
Yeah, there he is. Okay. Hi, David.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. Do I have the rest of my team before I start? I see Rad.
Another hand up, Casey
I saw
Brenner.
somebody from your firm was there too, David.
So Sarah Casey should be here.
There
And
she is. She's on now.
good, and Natasha Walko from Rad's office, who we may need to help us get to the documents. So she should be there also.
Yeah, she's coming on.
Perfect. Great. So while we're having her join.
I like, before you start, I'll give you credit for wearing jacket and tie to a Zoom meeting.
You know, Caesar, I got to tell you, I was in Greenberg right before this at a planning board meeting, and my Zoom protocol for the last 9 months has been white shirt and a jacket, but I have not been in Irvington in so long, and I knew I had a double header tonight. I figured I would actually put a tie on for you.
But the question is, are you wearing pajama bottoms or?
That's privileged and confidential information. So good evening. Good to be back in Irvington. Good to see all of you. David Steinmetz from the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz, joined by my colleague Casey Brenner. Pleased to be here this evening representing Rad Opacic, and it looks like Rad and Natasha, looking over his shoulder, are probably together, at least in part. We are here, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I think with kind of a unique and hopefully interesting and hopefully easier application. Unit number 13 in the River House condominium, which you said is located at 24 North Astor. If I simplify this application is essentially designed to allow Rad Opacic to now sleep in his office in a bed rather than falling asleep on a couch in his office. We are not seeking to change anything. Right now, Rad Opacic has had for quite some time an office in the village of Irvington located in this building. And as we have indicated in our application materials, and we can share in a moment, there are 2 different physical locations of that office, of that unit in the condominium. What Rad is seeking to do, as we tried to outline in our cover letter, is to effectively downsize, make the larger portion of his office, which is now 2,026 square feet, his residential portion, and continue to have the smaller portion, which is 925 square feet, and consolidate his architecture practice, which is now in the larger space, into the smaller space. So in terms of the unit remains the same. The use of the larger piece clearly becomes residential. Rad can explain how he can achieve a 2-bedroom modest residence in that area without any significant changes. There are no external modifications that are proposed. There is no change in the condominium unit count that is proposed. There is no, we believe, impact to parking. And maybe most significant, Rad does have the support of the River House Condominium Association. They are well aware of this. They have been consulted, and they know that they will have Rad now contributing as a member of the Condominium Association, as a resident, as well as having his small architecture practice. Clearly, there are some issues, and Mary Ann and I have had some preliminary discussion about the history of this project, which with Ed's help, we've been able to begin to unfold and better understand. And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that. The neighbors have been noticed, and I will let Rad and Natasha speak to whether we noticed all of the neighbors who were identified in some earlier zoning board matters or their successors in title. My understanding is that there should be no adverse impact whatsoever on any of those neighbors on Cotonet. There is no view impact. I know that there was some concerns, and Han's office mentioned no adverse impact to view preservation. Nothing on the outside of this building, which was obviously an item of contention many years ago, is changing. No one would know that Rad is now sleeping in a bed rather than sleeping on a couch when he falls asleep drafting documents. So with that as my initial opening, I would like to turn it over to Rad, Mr. Chairman, to just very briefly walk us through the physical location so that you're all familiar with where his office is in River House. And then you can briefly look at the floor plan so you can determine that he can indeed convert the larger 2,000 square foot area into a modest 2-bedroom residence. And we are hoping that the board will see this positively. We fully understand that we will need to go to the zoning board with regard to some site capacity issues and a variance. I know that Han and Mary Ann pointed out that Rad's office may have calculated site capacity based upon a number that they retrieved, which was not an accurate number. We can talk about that, and then we're happy to answer any questions. So without objection, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask Rad to just briefly walk us through just the physical components.
Go ahead, briefly.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so basically...
Could you identify your full name, please?
Hi, my name is Radoslav Opacic. I'm the client and architect in this particular case. My office is adjacent to North Astor, looking at the train station. The larger office is right above the kind of the garage space down below. And the smaller space is across the public walkway on the other side of the large space. And we're hoping to make the large space into a 2-bedroom loft for myself and my wife. I am downsizing my practice, so hopefully in a smaller space, I like to accommodate 3 to 4 architects to continue my practice in my sunset years, as somebody has mentioned.
I didn't use that phrase, Rad. That wasn't me.
Somebody, it's in a letter. It's
All
in a
right,
letter.
all right.
I did read it someplace.
Yeah. I was certain Casey got it from you or Natasha.
Caesar, I want to say something.
When they finish, let them finish.
Oh, I thought Rad was done. Okay.
I am. Thank you.
Okay. The main issue here, and Mary Ann will be happy to, I don't know if she'll be happy to explain, but she will explain it. I know she spoke to you on the phone, and the issue is site capacity for the residential units. And Mary Ann, if you would elaborate for the record.
Yeah, David, it's actually something more than getting a variance for the site capacity. This building has a site capacity of 12, but if you actually did the calculation, they would have a site capacity, I think, of 7 units. But there was litigation back in, I think it was 86, back in 86. Not litigation, but it went before the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Zoning Board of Appeals granted a variance for a site capacity of 12. And right now there are in fact 12 residential units in the building, and Rad's conversion would make it 13 residential units. Correct. So that would have to be varied. But actually what complicates it is part of the zoning board's decision was based on an agreement among the neighbors on North Cotonet, who had challenged the grant of a building permit for 12 units. It went before the zoning board. They came to an agreement with the owner of the building. The three neighbors came to an agreement with the owner of the building is, hey, we'll be okay with 12 units and a certain outline of the building. They didn't, their main concern was the outline of the building. I didn't sense from reading through it that it was the number of units so much as the size of the building and the outline of the building. So the zoning board said, actually, rather than deciding on the specifics of this variance or whatever, since you agreed on 12, we're going to give you a variance for a site capacity of 12, subject to that agreement. And that agreement, you've got to file with county land records. So I checked county land records, and in fact, the provisions of that agreement were included in the deed as covenants in the deed. And one of the deed covenants is that there can't be more than 12 residential units. That's one of it. And then also it has the drawings that show the outline of the building that it had to stay like that. So the only way really to waive that, and let me say one other thing. This list of covenants ran in favor of and could be enforced by the three people who started the action. I think it was 13 Continent, 17 Continent, 19 Continent, and the village. So the village does have a stake in here. It's it's up to the village whether it would want to, follow up on it or not. But in any event, it seems to me that they need to get the agreement. Oh, I'm sorry. The other thing I should say, it was binding not only on those current owners of 13, 17, and 19, but any future owners of the property. So it would be binding on them. And there's this agreement that says you can only have 12 units. So it seems to me, and I talked to David about this, that the way around that is to talk to those three property owners, 13, 17, 19, and see if they'll agree to increasing the number of units to 13. And if they can do that, it works. The reason I was a little concerned, I didn't see in the notice that 13 and 17 had been, I saw a notice to 19, but I didn't see a notice to 13 and 17. Although I don't think that would be enough, just the fact that they were noticed because they might not get it. But anyway, so I think my understanding from talking to David is you understand that the next step is to talk to those three property owners and get their agreement to 13 units instead of 12.
Brad, that was
everybody to the planning board members.
With David, with that all outstanding, you're going to need, before this moves on, you're going to need to straighten this, whatever the issues with that Mary Ann outlined before we move on to further.
Understood.
Well, I'm not prepared for a resolution, and let me ask the rest of the board. Dan?
Yeah, I would imagine that the legal technicalities with the residents from 13, 17, and 19, might pose a problem. So until that's ironed out, I guess we should wait to hear about that.
Kevin?
It sounds relatively academic to me. I'd like to hear what council has to say. It sounds like he has something that's sort of responsive to what Mary Ann has said.
Well, we're going to be listening. George?
Yeah, I think this is completely, the spirit, I would assume, of why they came up with that count was to keep the envelope a certain size and not to increase. So I don't see an increase in that. I just see that the use is changing. And if anything, that building, the value both for the applicant and for the building has increased because now there's 2 units that will then at some time, perhaps be continuing to pay additional maintenance fees and all that kind of stuff. So I see this as Kevin said, academic, and it's just, it isn't anything physical, so, that I can understand.
Mike?
Well, I don't think it's academic, although it may be achievable. So I think that agreement ought to be sought of the 3 property owners, and we ought to carry this over.
I'm of that opinion also, and there's one other minor item, and the creation of a new unit creates a payment of rec fees. So David, you have to acknowledge that.
Understood.
Go ahead, speak.
So just very briefly, well, I appreciate all the comments that you've shared, and while I understand the concept of referring to it as academic and the disagreement with the word, Mary Ann has heard me articulate this, so I just want the whole board to hear this. In my opinion, legally, the covenant and the deed restriction is technically a private issue between neighboring property owners. I am fully aware that the village has enforcement rights. So should the village decide to waive or surrender its enforcement rights for the reasons that Mr. Boyle just indicated, because based upon my understanding of the history, and I'll be very brief, but it's important, this building was originally proposed to be something in the neighborhood of 32 or 33 units. It was then scaled back to something like 18 units. And then I gather as a result of neighborhood pressure, it dropped to 12. And you all understand that better than I do, knowing your community. It was all based upon roof line, views of the Hudson, size and massing of the building. So in effect, while it may not be academic, I think from a pragmatic standpoint, we are really not talking about something that's all that significant. It's a use issue. Having said that, I don't believe RAD has any objection to knocking on the doors of the neighbors and discussing it and teasing the issue out. The reason, Mr. Chairman, that we're here, and I really appreciate the comments you just made, I don't want to have my client go knocking on doors and raising technical issues about covenants that are 30 some odd years old that these people probably know absolutely nothing about. One of them, I think, may be a renter. I don't want to do that unless I have a sense that the village actually does think this is a good application, and there will be a rec fee and a building permit fee and an increase in ratables and a wonderful contribution to the River House condominium that doesn't oppose this. So as long as the 5 of you kind of nod and think this is a viable application, it's unique. I said that at the outset, but as long as none of you is saying, RAD, you're crazy, we hate this, keep working and don't go to sleep, then we're ready to pursue it. And RAD, unless you have an objection, you hear your board is your planning board is asking you to at least reach out to the neighbors on Cotonet, and I'm assuming that they're going to say, what difference does this make to us?
Well, the compelling point is, as George articulated, nothing changes in the exterior. There are no view issues. And by the way, even though there are no view issues, the application needs to say there are no view issues.
Understood.
I don't think anybody on the board dismissed this as something we're going to say no to. But we have legal counsel, and legal counsel says this is an issue that's important. And until the issue that legal counsel has pointed out is satisfied, you need to move on and talk to satisfy the legal issues before we can move forward. I think that's the only entanglement. If I'm wrong, somebody on the board speak up. Anybody?
I guess I just have a question about the scope of a planning board. I mean, this is kind of a legal question. So as a planning board, the use changes, nothing physical changes. So our question is whether the use creates some sort of issue. I get that doesn't change anything that Caesar, you just said. That's my only, I'm just trying to wrestle with.
You're thinking out loud.
Yeah, with, I don't want to unnecessarily, burden them in any way. And, so whatever the path of, it's complicated, and there's reasons why it was done this way and why there was this agreement and all of these things, and we can't undo that. So I don't know, I guess I am thinking out loud and trying to make things happen more quickly when in fact I'm slowing it down. So maybe I'll shut up.
Caesar, if I could just say why it's relevant to you guys is it's the planning board that makes site capacity determinations. Under the code, it's the planning board that makes the site capacity determination. If you were making the site capacity determination based on the actual property size here, you'd find there could be 7 units. There's 12.
Property side, meaning including the post office.
Well, no. The property that this is on is 19,300 square feet.
The actual property that
The
it's.
site capacity analysis that was submitted said it was 31,300 square feet. It's the wrong number. It's 19,300 square feet, which brings you to a site capacity of 7. So but actually, the zoning board already granted a variance for 12, okay? So they have the variance for 12. But anyway, that's why, Kevin, that's why it's relevant to this board, because you guys make the site capacity determinations. But I want to say 2 other things. Is I think we need to see something more than Rad saying, hey, the neighbors said, I talked to the neighbors and they said it's okay. I think they should, well, David, that was what you said. There should be some signed agreement from them as we have no problem with 13 units or whatever. And then the other thing is, even if you do have that, I still think you do need to get a variance, because you're essentially asking the zoning board to change their maximum from 12 to 13.
All right, so based on that, I don't think we should move forward until you're satisfied. I mean, you're our legal counsel, so I'm relying on that. And David, you need to do your homework.
And can I just say, by way of analogy, Caesar, just like on that last application, between Hudson Gray and Stamford Bridge,
right.
We required the easement agreement to say one could access property through another. You could say, hey, that's just between property owners. Well, yeah, it is, but we generally don't get involved in approving things that would be an obvious violation of somebody else's property rights.
Well, I fall back on my regulatory experience, and I know when I see something that in normal life, and I see something that's wrong, my first reaction is, who the heck approved that? And I don't want that to be said about us. So that's where we're at.
The other thing that one should recognize too is that what happens to, I don't know how big the other units are, but if someone then realizes they can bifurcate their space and make additional units, how does that impact things like parking and stuff like that?
So I want to make sure, I want to clarify that. I thought I hit it, but it needs to be made clearer in my opinion. Rad owns 2 physical separated spaces, and he's the only one who does, but they are one condominium unit. And Mary Ann asked me a question, Mr. Boyle, that you're touching on, and that is he creating a new condominium unit? Is he going to have a separately alienable or divisible piece that he could sell? Answer, no. There are 13 condominium units in River House. There are 12 residential, and the 13th, he's the 13th. There will still be 13 condominium units. So we're not creating a precedent about subdividing the other 12, because we already have 1 unit. We will keep 1 unit. The only thing we're doing is turning 2,000 of our 3,000 square feet into a residential piece, and 900 of it into the only area that would allow continued use as professional office space. So,
not that I know this, but is there a live work use that Irvington has?
I'd have to defer to Mary Ann on that. I don't believe you do, but Mary Ann, is there a separate?
Well, we allow home offices. I guess that's sort of,
Couldn't this be a home office then?
Also in the business district.
It works like that.
We allow home offices in the business district, and we allow them in the single family.
Right.
And just it hasn't been mentioned, although the numbers need to be corrected. There are benefits that need to be spoken about, like the parking, like the customers, will call them, and the employees coming in and out. It's now less square footage will be an office. I think there's a net gain in our parking analysis of at least 5 spaces not needed.
Ed, I agree with you. I think I did it very quickly, but in my opening, I did say we thought there'd be a reduction in the parking demand.
Yeah, it's like 5 spaces. So, I
Pedestrian
mean,
movement, and clearly, I think Mr. Boyle was the first to identify an increased rateable benefit to the village. So
right.
suffice it to say, I think the takeaway, Rad, is I think it's fairly positively received in terms of what your concept is. The issue is dealing with the legal impediments that were brought to our attention in that deed. And we need to work through that, and hopefully we can do that. Otherwise, we'll come back and revisit the issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any comment from the public there, Sarah?
Nobody has their hand raised, and there are no comments in the chat.
Terrific.
Any further comment from the board? Dan, Kevin, George, Mike?
No.
I can only say that when I have to sleep in my studio, I have an extra down coat that I put on my desk, and it's worked fairly well. Not for long, but so good luck with your new apartment. Sounds great.
Thank you all. We'll see you again soon, hopefully. Everybody stay well.
Thanks. Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're done with that. If you and your crew could sign off, and we'll move on to the next.
Well, Brad is the architect on this next one.
Oh, interesting.
I'm back.
Are you able to share the screen, Natasha?
Let me introduce the topic first. Number 6, 2021-01, 19 Matheson Park. We have an applicant.
We have an applicant. I don't know who's with us, Nat. Is anybody?
You need to re-identify yourself for the.
Hi. Good evening. Radoslav Opacic. I'm the architect for 19 Matheson, representing Jacqueline and Andres Cyrilnik. We are proposing a substantial renovation of the current home. Oops, what happened? Oh, that's doing that. So the home is what we believe was built in 1860, Second Empire style, and we are proposing a restoration of the main block of the building, renovation of the northeast wing, and a addition which will contain a mudroom, garage, and a cabana. We are increasing the footprint of the current building by 754 square feet. In terms of the site, we're proposing a new pool and a garden and a driveway. We're working very hard removing existing paving as we were adding building footprint, and we thought we had it covered where we had zero, where we netted out to be on target with coverage, but we didn't realize that gravel in the garden counts as paving. So we are now 930 square feet beyond the coverage, which is where we started. The current building is 900 feet beyond the capacity of coverage. So we have some work to do in that area. I understand that the driveway is also a bit of an issue, and there are quite a few things on the hand review that we need to address. So as a first pass, I hope we can look at this and then come back to you with answers on all these items.
Just to be clear, the issues with the driveway are the easements for 3 other property owners.
Yes. I think I will address that with the client, and maybe we will rethink that idea. This is something that they've been using since they purchased the property. They like it, and we didn't realize we were crossing other properties.
I continue with the rest of, if unless you're finished.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
You said you're taking certain things down. Is there, I think it's referred to as a chicken coop. Is that staying or going?
Well, that will be, that will need to be relocated. We didn't, that's where the clients placed it, and we really didn't focus on it, but it seems that that is a structure, so we will have to put it within the setback lines.
And coverage.
And coverage.
And coverage.
All
Or maybe we'll just have a lot of chicken soup.
right, there are some significant landscaping issues. What trees are coming out, what trees are going in. These are probably in the letter from Mr. Hahn. There's pool screening issues. There was an issue with planting new trees that may destroy existing trees because you're planting the new trees in the root zone of existing trees. So we have an arborist, Susan Nolan, and all these issues need to be worked out because it's rather thin in terms of the trees going out and the trees coming in, screening for the pool. And there's also a lot of regrading going on, and 3 inches of regrading around the tree is if there's, it can't be more than that. I believe there's a code relating to that because if you add 3 inches over the top of the roots, you're likely to kill the tree. View preservation, I don't think it's an issue, but it has to be presented as not an issue in some way that it was addressed. I think there's drainage issues in the fire pit, the rear yard setback. And finally, for your engineer, is the total disturbance over an acre? Because then you need a DEC stormwater permit. So that's a question.
Yep. I think is the engineer with us? Is to talk about the drainage?
Well, it's an issue that you can work out with our engineer. You don't have.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on. I can discuss it with Han after the fact. I don't think there was any crazy drainage issues as far as the comments were concerned. I'll bet it from Hudson, by the way.
Well, the coverage is an issue, and you recognize it, and you need to work that out with Ed.
Yep.
The inspector and the engineer. What about the historic significance? You said it was built in 18, whatever you said.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
The historic nature of the building, the additions is going to be in keeping with the nature of the existing building?
Yes, it's going to be in keeping with the Empire style. Nat will bring up the elevations. You see the existing above and proposed down below. So we're removing on the far left, excuse me, we're removing the two-car garage, which is facing the entry. We are rotating the garage doors 90 degrees off to the side. And the new building is that's what you're looking at is a garage, mudroom, and a future guest quarters up above under the roof. So we're keeping with the existing mansard roof and the stone facade, mimicking the original building.
But that building, the new building, is higher than the existing. So, probably not an issue, but it needs to be addressed, the view preservation issue, because that section there is higher. It looks higher than any.
I see. Yes. Okay.
And any new lighting, it has to be, you are aware of dark sky compliance.
We will address that. Yes.
Any comment from the board, Dan?
I have no comments, Caesar.
Kevin?
No, thank you.
George?
No, it's it. Nothing. No.
Mike?
No, you covered everything.
Sarah, anything from the public?
No one was raising their hand to speak, but there is a comment in the chat from Anthony Zaino, and he said that this is the landscape architect, and he will address all comments received by Suzanne Nolan.
Terrific. And actually, in addition to addressing them, it's always best to speak to the person to make sure that what was addressed is what she asked for. Okay. Okay, thank you. I think we're done. One last request for anything further, anybody? No. Okay, thank you very much for the
Thank you very
presentation.
much. Good evening. Thanks for your help.
See you next time around.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 7, 2021-06, 51 Manor Pond Lane. I wonder if John's going to be around.
John,
Here.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we missed you at North. South.
I'm so sorry, guys. I've had computer problems. Claudia was trying to get on. Did it not? You didn't see her
I
raise
saw
hand?
her thing, but she didn't see anything. Ubata was on.
Okay. I'm sorry. If you have any questions for me on that, we can. If you
Well,
don't mind.
we moved on. He's got the questions.
Okay. All right.
In the interest of saving time on this, John.
Yeah.
There's an issue with the subdivision cap issue, which indicates that this would be over the subdivision cap, which means it's not sure the relevance of our board looking at this if it exceeds the cap of the subdivision coverage.
So
You're free
yeah.
to make a presentation.
So our understanding is that I think you're talking about the coverage amount.
Yes.
So we developed coverage calculations for the project based on the memorandum from 2002, which we were assuming the board would want us to use because we've been using it recently for other projects in the subdivision. So, and the development that we did,
Do you mean the 2014, John, my memo?
Yes, I'm sorry.
2014.
Right, 2014 memorandum. So, our assumption is that we're working within that memorandum and wanted the coverage to be underneath the allowable indicated in the process that was outlined there. So,
I think we have disagreement on what the memorandum says. Mary Ann?
Okay,
Yeah,
so we should.
John, what you did was just briefly, I won't go into all the detail, although I recommend that the planning board members read this memo. It was included in John's packet. But the reason it's an issue is in Legend Hollow, the maximum size of buildings that could be built was part of the subdivision approval. So it's not just enough, they can't just go get a variance from it. They would, if they're going to exceed the coverage that was in the subdivision approval, they would have to open the subdivision and reopen the subdivision, and none of them wants to do that. Now, John, the reason I think your calculation was wrong is you're treating the deck as if it was a patio. At the time, at the time this project was approved, the building department wasn't including patios, retaining walls, and walkways in coverage. So that would have put everybody in Legend Hollow who wanted to increase now at a disadvantage. So and because you can't go get a variance and argue it's a technical variance, the planning board came up with this formula in 2014 that if the walkway, retaining wall, and or patios were there at the time the house was originally improved, that doesn't get included in coverage, and you could subtract that. And then anything since then counts as coverage, or anything proposed counts as coverage. But what you did was you did that same thing with a deck. You subtracted the deck. Now, and previously it was okay, because patios were not being included in coverage, but back then decks were included in coverage. And if you read the memo, it always refers to retaining walls, walkways, and patios.
So
So
I
the
think,
memo, what she's saying, it doesn't, the memo does not include decks.
right, and
Right.
just to be clear, the only reason that we are subtracting anything is because it is something that was counted as coverage. So our understanding of the memo, and we can go through the language of the memo, is that the starting point for calculation should be the approved coverage in this case, and we can look at the memo, or we can look at the drawing set, and I can go through this with you. But the starting point was the subdivision approved coverage, which I believe was in this
I think it was
case.
4,800.
Well, that was the max coverage. So the memo says that you should be starting from the approved coverage, which was less than that. Would it be, can I share a screen to show you?
John, what was the square footage of walls and things that are not counted now?
So we didn't include that. The way the memo is written, it says that your starting point for your calculation should be the approved coverage indicated in the subdivision, which, hold on one second.
No, should be what was built originally, right?
No, that's not what it says. It's the approved coverage amount. And it's the built originally coverage amount, but it's what was built originally. That's the starting point. From that, you subtract anything that was.
No, John.
Can we look at the memorandum then?
Yeah, I'm reading it.
Okay.
It's determined by adding to the coverage shown on the original approved site development plan. That doesn't mean the amount you could build, it was the amount you did build. What was on the approved site development plan?
No, if you read the rest of it, the approved site development plan, the memo clearly says in the example that the max is 4,800.
Well, on that example, it happened to be.
Well, the max on ours is 4,800 as well, but the original built amount is less. Right.
So then, yeah, the coverage of the house when built was 3,308. So
Right.
that's the number you have to start with, is how
Right.
much was there when it was built.
And from that number, Marion, we subtracted a deck, which was included in that number.
Well, but that's the point. You wouldn't subtract the deck.
You would subtract a deck.
You
It's
would
not a
not.
patio. It was, the
You
deck
would
is something that,
subtract the patio, but not a deck.
no, if you read the way the memo was written, that you.
Excuse me, while this is all very interesting, I think it needs to be discussed offline, because it doesn't sound like we're gonna come to a conclusion
Yeah,
right
you
now.
know what? Maybe this is something that John and Ed and I should have a conversation about.
Right. I mean, and just so the board knows, our goal is just to match the direction that we understood from the memorandum. So we can work that out with Marianne and discuss the. what
Does
we
that
did.
make sense for the three of us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not buying his calculation, so he's gonna have to demonstrate a better
Yeah.
argument. John, I mean, it's clear, patios, walkways, and walls. It never said decks.
No, the deck that was subtracted, guys, is the house was built.
John, I don't
We
mean to
can
cut you
move
off.
on. The house was
Yeah.
built, the deck was subtracted, and a different deck was built in its place. So what we did was.
Which is compounds the argument, John, that the deck counts as coverage.
We're never saying that the deck didn't count as coverage. What we're saying is the original deck was removed and replaced with a new deck. And if you look at the memorandum, the way it was written, it clearly implies that you start with the coverage that was
Oh,
there.
I see
And
what
then
you're
the new,
saying.
you
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? The deck has only been, the deck that we removed was an original deck that was part of that original 3,000 square foot coverage. To that, we added the new deck, but we did not calculate the new deck as if it was, a subdivision deck. We calculated as per current code. And then from that new deck, we calculated everything out as per current code. That's how the memorandum reads, and that's all we're doing. We're not trying to subtract something that, we're subtracting something from the.
Yeah, but are you taking advantage of, was there an error in the original approval? Was the deck included in the coverage in the original approval?
Correct. And that deck was replaced by a different deck that was a more recent deck, and that has to be calculated at current code. It can't be calculated.
Okay,
That's why that's shown.
saying that. But
Yeah,
With that in mind, I have to look at the numbers again.
Okay, yeah, I can go through it with you guys. I know that it's confusing, but that's what's happening there. It's not that we're trying to subtract something that isn't.
Yeah, that's what it would look like. The
Right, and that's
subtraction
not
was the same
that's not
way
what
you
we do.
subtract a patio, but what you're saying is you subtracted it because you took that deck down, let's say it was 500 feet, and put up 1,000-foot deck.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and that
Sounds like-
happened, that
And
happened
then the
before
net
this
there is
memorandum,
500.
and that happened under its own thing and had to be done, with current coverage. Right?
Okay.
All right, you need to work out that coverage
Get in
issue.
mind, we should just look at that calculation sheet again.
Okay,
There's some other things. You got two 20-inch oaks X'd out on the plans, but in the notes, it's only one tree to be removed.
Yes.
And there's no discussion. I don't know whether two are coming down or one is coming down, and there's no explanation of unless I didn't see it, tree replacement.
Yeah, we're showing mitigating replacements for the removals.
Okay, and there's rock. When you drive down the I forget the name of the street, the street that goes along parallel to the property, there's rock sticking out. I don't know, you got to take that into account. Did you do any deep test boring or to see?
I think the first thing is just to confirm, there's a lot of things in terms of the layout of this. We were going to confirm that.
Yeah.
When we get civil started, they're going to do a deep
there's no
test pit, and they'll do at the same time, we'll test for the pool at that.
Well, there's also drainage issues. If you're going to be disposing of drainage water, and it doesn't do well absorbing into rock if the rock is around.
There was, when they did the deck, we had drawings, they did put a Cultec in closer to the house. So there must have been depth in that area, and the goal, Caesar, is just to expand the existing system in the location.
Well, I don't know how close you want to put the drainage to the house. It would migrate right into the basement. Anyway, that's
Yeah. No, I mean, we actually haven't gotten Hudson started on this because we want to.
Well, then you need to come back with all the engineering issues, the rock. And you certainly got to take care of the tree, what I just talked about, and this coverage issue. You have to satisfy Ed and Mary Ann about what we're talking about. Does it satisfy if it doesn't satisfy the subdivision cap, then it's a deal breaker.
Right, yeah, no, we understand. I mean, that was the point of the calculation, was to stay.
And a new pool, if there's new lighting for the pool, you understand dark sky lighting.
Correct, thanks.
All right.
Wait,
luck with
Caesar,
that,
I have,
and, go ahead,
Caesar,
Mary
I
Ann,
have
I'm
one
sorry.
other thing. John, would you can you get me the portion of the subdivision plat that shows the building envelope and the maximum building size for that property? The thing included in the packet you couldn't read.
Yeah, I can add that's the best printout that we got from the building.
Well, you know what? Blow it up then and just email it to me.
Okay, I will. I'll try to get a more legible copy of it.
Yeah, okay.
All right, let me poll the board. Dan, you have any questions?
No questions, Caesar.
Kevin?
No, thanks.
George?
No, they have a lot of homework to do, that's all. Thanks.
Mike?
No questions.
Sarah? Excuse me. Anything from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
All right, John, you got a lot of homework to do. And there'll be a grading period. There's no curve. So good luck with that.
So Mary Ann, I'll speak to you later in the week or something. I can send the stuff to you.
Okay.
All right, John, we're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think I might be the next one, so I was going to stay on.
Yeah, you're at 26 Willow. Okay, the next one, number 8, is 2021-05, and it's 26 Willow Street. Kevin Thurman has recused himself on this, and we'll proceed with the remaining 4 board members. Go ahead, John.
Okay. Hold on one sec. Are you guys seeing a screen that's too small? So this project is for the addition of a small screen porch on the rear of the house in the footprint of an existing deck. Currently, the deck area is here. Currently, the deck has no stairs off of it. The site slopes away, so the floor level is one level up from the grade behind, and the existing deck, there's just basically no stairs off of it. The goal is to replace that deck with a screen porch with some stairs.
You're replacing, is the footprint of the screen porch in the process of enclosing it? Is the footprint getting bigger?
It is getting bigger right now, Caesar. In this elevation, you can see the deck.
So
that's
the
here.
coverage is increasing.
Right. The deck here is aligned with this protrusion out the back of the house. In order for this to get some stairs to work, the most efficient way we thought to do that was to bring the stairs along here. So the enclosed porch extends out there, and it actually extends out past the stairs in order to make it more usable. But that's what's shown there. It's very simple add to the rear. So there's just a screen porch that extends there. The coverage is not increasing because we're removing existing impervious. We are adding a new stormwater system as if the deck were a new coverage. So even though we're not increasing impervious, we're treating it as new impervious. So this piece of walk here, which is some amount, I'm trying to think how big it is. It is about 100 square feet. The removal of that offsets the deck coverage. So though the coverage remains over allowable, it's actually reduced by 1%. It's reduced by a few feet, but it's and then in terms of FAR, we're well below allowable FAR. So the screen porch, because it's permanently enclosed with screens, counts as FAR. But we're only at 67% of allowable FAR. The other issue is that it's a very tight site, and we are in the project is extend. You can see that the setbacks for the house are right at the limit of the main volume of the house. So this is happening in the rear yard. So we would be requesting a variance for the rear yard.
John, whoever's doing the drainage, have them give me a call too to go over it before you start changing a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
The records showed as an undocumented basement. They need to
So John, I'm worried about egress under the deck. And we found that the basement to be undocumented. So if you could take a look at that.
Okay. In the COVID world, I've actually never been in the house, so I will go take a look.
Yeah.
So you're just, right now, the way that the house is arranged, it's like this weird split level. So you're saying the basement on the bottom there's a basement on the bottom of the page that it was shown as what, just basement and?
Something, yeah.
All right, I'll take a look.
And you're eliminating the basement egress stair.
We're going to maintain what's there. We're just going to leave it where it is underneath.
Well, that's fine. I mean, you can do that, or just make sure your window meets egress.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Yeah.
What about construction access? You're not going to get any equipment in the back because the access back there is blocked by trees and stuff?
Yeah, I think, we're showing a construction entrance on the side here, but that would really be for the excavation associated with.
There's all trees along that property line, and the AC is right there.
Yeah, no, we're going to go down this side, Caesar, on the side where the path is.
Oh, that side, okay.
Yeah, so we're showing the construction entrance on the path. Like the thing will be on piers. The addition would be on sonotubes, so they're probably something that you could do by hand. You wouldn't need equipment for that. I think
if you could put a note to that effect, that would be nice.
Yeah, but I think you probably will need a small machine for the Cultec. I don't know. I guess you could dig that by hand, but it might, like, a small Bobcat would probably get it done faster and not have any effect on any trees.
Is it going to fit down that alleyway?
Yeah, it does.
The north side alleyway.
Yeah, this thing that we're showing here, this square is actually a material storage area. It's not a building. So, you do have room to get around that side with something small.
All right, you know, you need the rear yard setback.
Yep.
And, you know, these issues just need to be addressed. I don't think they're issues, but they need to be addressed. The view preservation, the lighting, and it's in a historical district.
Right. In terms of view preservation in situations like this where
You just need to say something about
yeah,
it.
we'll just say something because it is entirely hidden behind the existing building.
Right, but we need to, the record needs to show that we looked at it.
Okay, I will.
And the dark sky, the deck is going to have any lighting?
There'll be interior lighting, which I think would be dark sky because it's inside the house. I don't think we were showing any exterior lighting associated with the stairs, but maybe we should. We'll take a look at that.
Every exit has to have a light, John, from the house.
Yeah, I think we might actually be showing something. I don't know if there's a note about its dark sky compliance or not, though. Let's see.
All right, I'm okay with you guys going to the ZBA and then coming back to address the things we talked about, which are not critical. I'll poll the board to that effect. Dan?
I'm in agreement with you, Caesar, to the ZBA, and everything else looks okay.
Kevin?
He can't.
He's
Kevin can't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't have my water, so I forgot. George?
I'm fine. Yeah, this is fine.
Mike?
That's fine with me.
And I already said that's fine with me. Any comment from the public, Sarah?
There is a comment in the chat from the homeowner, Carolyn Newhouse, saying that if you had any questions about the current layout, she's here. And we do have somebody raising their hand to speak. Andy and Betsy from 28.
In regards to the chat question, I think John covered the layout. Let's listen to the person who wants to speak.
Okay.
Hello, this is Andrew Raybold from 28 Willow Street and Betsy Donovan. We just had a few quick points we'd like to go through on the diagram, if we could.
Now, just to be clear, you're immediately to the north on the same side of the street?
It is to the south.
We're on the south.
That would be here, Caesar, just to the.
Yeah, number 28.
There's another house? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, correct. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And if it would help actually if you've got the diagram up maybe rather than us try and present it. And I'll just go through these in order from the top if you like. On page 7, it's got the area listed as 120 square feet and the volume of 573 cubic feet. But that would imply it's less than 4 feet high on average.
Let me see what we've done there. The volume on, are you talking about the application? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where the volume.
Yeah, it's on page 7, this one.
That's
okay.
PDF 7.
Okay, he's talking about the application? Or are you talking about the drawing set?
I assume it's the application. It's the document we're looking at.
Okay, if there was an error in the volume there, we can correct that. It does. You're right. It doesn't. I think that may be the addition. It wouldn't make sense for it to be that small. You're correct. So we'll figure out what happened there, and we can correct that in the application.
Right.
Other than the volume issue, do you have the physical visual of the new cut-in screened-in porch? Is what I would be interested in your view.
We're getting to that. We have.
Okay.
Yeah, do you want to go to that if you like? On the very bottom elevation diagram of what it's going to look like, which I believe is right at the bottom there. This diagram puzzled us for a while because it doesn't seem to be consistent, and this actually makes it look smaller than it is because it shows on the side elevation, it shows the roof line being lower than the gutter line of the roof. And Betsy figured out what's gone on here. This diagram is actually the north side reversed.
Yes, there's something wrong here.
Sorry.
Right, so something, this roof line is actually lower on this side.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
And there's fewer windows.
correct. Okay.
We're familiar with that side of the house.
That's your side.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Just a couple of other things. We noticed that the notifications went out to the school board and Half Moon's North, among other people, but there's Larry at Chefs at 3 Dowes Lane, which is actually on the school property or surrounded by the school property, and it's across from the basketball court that's in the school there. And as far as I can see, he's at least as involved in it as Half Moon North.
The school.
I think the labels that we get for the notice are generated they're generated by the village's system, and it's based on a specific radius. So it's possible that Larry's property did not hit that line. And that's probably most likely, because even though he's, in a sense adjacent, I don't believe he's within that boundary. That would probably explain why he wasn't on the list. Larry is a client of ours. If you're concerned, we can, of course, review it with him. I don't think he'll have a concern about it, but.
I think it's unlikely, yeah.
Right.
But they will be able to see it from their house. So, okay, so we've addressed that. There was a worksheet it was on page 28 on the PDF, showing for the average grade, I think it was, that seems to have spreadsheet gibberish in it rather than actual numbers.
Okay. I don't have that in front of me, but if we can plan to take another look at that, I'll take a note. So.
I'm pretty sure it'll end up saying there's no issue there, but.
Average grade, actually, the reason it would have gibberish in is because average grade would not be something that's used to determine height on this property. That's only on a slope site. So it's most likely left blank for that reason.
Okay, and then I was curious on the diagram of the adjacent properties, the map that shows all the houses around it. The 3 on Maple Street are bold, whereas the rest aren't. I wonder what the significance of that was.
I think that they're most likely in the map that we got from the online system that it wasn't legible. So I think they just added that information so make it more legible.
And then just had one more general question. What we've been trying to figure out is whether this will have any consequence, will it have any, impose any limitations on what we can do in our own property that do not already exist.
In what sense would you?
The view preservation area, for example, is there any issue there?
So the view preservation code is designed to protect views of the river. So if there's an existing view of the river that would potentially be disrupted by this, we're supposed to consider that. Given its location relative to where potential river views would be, which would be from the east to the west, we didn't believe that there would be any visual impacts. I mean, we always can look more closely on the site. Its height is below the line of the lower half of the roof.
Don, I think his question is what's happening on this property going to impact him adversely on what he might do on his property?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it would. I think there's a stormwater impact from new impervious. We're going to capture that stormwater and put it in the ground on site, which should probably be an improvement from the condition that's there because we're replacing existing untreated
Mhm.
impervious. Other than that, I'm not sure. There's no tree removals associated with it. You know, I think, you know, typically the impacts are, you know, view, stormwater, and habitat and trees, and we don't see any of those having significant impacts on that property.
So you don't see anything limiting the activity on the neighbor?
Oh,
Right,
yeah,
but-
and certainly I don't understand what would, you know, you could talk about potential impacts. I'm not sure how it would limit development on the neighboring side.
Ed, do you agree with that?
Yeah, the restrictions are not meant to punish, are not to, restrictions are for that property and only that property. So if you were to do a project on your property, is that the question you're asking? You would have the same restrictions they have. Nothing they can do can exasperate any restriction you have now. Does that
Okay.
answer your question?
Yeah,
I think that answered it, yes.
yeah, certainly, yes.
Yes,
Anything
thanks.
else, the young man?
No, that's covered all our issues.
From my understanding of it, it sounds that your questions had to do with housekeeping and that it didn't sound like you had an issue of what it's going to look like.
So it's hard to tell what the exterior is going to be. Is it going to match the existing siding or?
Our goal was, you know, because that siding is what it is, that we're not matching that siding. The proposal is more like it's an open screen with a panel below. It would be painted out to match the trim color on the house. So we're not going to extend any of that existing siding material onto it. It's sort of intended to be its own sort of a little porch extension.
How large?
But you're going to match the color. Yeah, I think I heard
Yeah,
you say.
basically the whole porch would be the trim color of the house, the window trim color, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So it's like a Florida room in essence.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. If you have nothing else, we'll ask the board if they have any more comment based on your presentation. Dan?
No comments here.
Kevin? Kevin? I'm sorry, I keep forgetting, getting old. George?
Excellent analysis by the neighbors.
Mike?
No other comments.
Yes, I want to thank the neighbor for taking the time to do such a thorough review. I was especially impressed with the cubic feet involved. Mike will, I'm sure John will correct it, whatever was wrong. Sarah, anything else from the public?
No, that's it.
All right, we are still of the same opinion that this can go to the ZBA and come back with the housekeeping stuff that was covered tonight. And John, you need to, as you said, the view preservation probably is not an issue, but you need to at least address it so that the record shows it was done.
Yeah, we'll do that.
And as Ed said, there's a need for lighting. It needs to be dark sky compliant.
I'm sorry, I did find it. There is a lighting shown in case people are interested, just on this facade on the side. So we'll indicate that it needs to be dark sky compliant.
And you got to talk to Ed about the basement.
Correct. Right. Ed, you're just looking for us to see what's down there and make sure it's life safety code compliant, right?
All right. So
No, you have to legalize it. If you can't find documentation, you'll have to legalize it as if it was not there.
Do you want to include it in the planning board package?
Well,
or
no, it's just, what I don't want to do is get to permit and then you'll be waiting.
Yeah. I know, I got you. I mean, I don't know if we need to add it to this, but I'll make sure that it.
No. I don't want you getting all your approvals and I have to say, I'm not giving you the permit because you didn't legalize the basement.
Got it. All right.
I think we're done. I think you're off to the zoning board and we'll see you after you come back from them.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Moving on to number 9. 2021-04, 129 Rudder Dubois Lane. I see a Bill Witt. You're on mute, Mr. Bill Witt.
There we go. Good evening. My name is Bill Witt. As you say, I'm the architect for this project at 129 Rudder Dubois Lane. This happens to be in the Field Point development. My clients, Stephen Ballett and Mindy Borisoff, are looking to renovate an existing rear deck on their house, replace the decking, replace the railing. While we're at it with the renovation, they would also like to relocate the existing stair on the deck. Currently, the existing stair creates a bit of a pinch point, makes it hard to use the deck and to furnish. So by relocating the deck to the northern side, relocating the stair to the northern side of the deck, makes the deck much more usable. It does, however, result in a 39 square foot increase in total lot coverage on this property. We understand that's probably the major issue that has come up in Han Engineering's report. We don't see any issue with addressing the concerns in there or in the landscapes, your landscape consultant's recommendations about protecting a single tree. I will note, however, that there are notes on the plan that say no machinery will be used for this project. Everything will be hand dug. Access to the site will be directed along the right-hand side. So we don't foresee any issues with any tree damage, but my client's more than happy to put up tree protection to satisfy that requirement.
I think her concern is that if you dig the concrete pier at the bottom of the steps, that the 14-inch tree, you may be digging in the root zone. Maybe.
Okay. I'll show that root zone and make sure that doesn't become an issue. And if so, we'll propose proper mitigation, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's basically what we're proposing to do here. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
How much is the coverage variance?
Well, the existing house is non-conforming. So I believe the values are 2011 is allowable, 2,547 is existing, and I'm proposing 2,586, or an increase of 1.5% from existing. Now that's extensive, obviously, when you think about it in this total lot coverage. However, I assume since this was a cluster development, they may have had certain liberties in the zoning. It doesn't meet the lot size. It doesn't meet the setback requirements on almost all corners and sides. And I assume that the lot coverage was a similar issue. I would mention, though, that my client is entirely open to the idea of removing some existing stepping stones that are currently on the south side of the property, where it's only 1 foot off the property line. That would eliminate 49 square foot of existing coverage. And like I said, we're proposing an additional 39, so it would more than mitigate the impact of this stair relocation and possibly avoid the zoning issue.
Well, that might be a good idea. Just, you don't have to go to the zoning board if there's no other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it came to us late, but we think that that's probably how we'd like to proceed with it.
Is that a commitment?
Yes.
The Field Point, I believe there was a letter from Field Point saying that they had the homeowners association.
Yes, we did submit for and received approval from the homeowners association for the relocation of the stair, the increase in deck size, the increase in coverage, and the materials to be used.
Were there any other requirements that need to be folded into the plans? So that the letter is not standing out there, it needs to be incorporated into the project that we're looking at.
Well, Doug did ask if I could take those comments and put it on this site plan, and I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay. I think we'll need to see the coverage recalculated and your root zone. Any comment from the board? Dan,
No comments, Caesar.
Kevin,
No, thank you.
George,
Nope.
Mike?
No.
All right, why don't you come back with, and then we'll, if you fix these things, Doug, they got some engineering issues, any drainage?
Oh, now I see why nobody was answering. I was on mute. Ed, is the location on this, I just want to make sure he's not going to have to come back for coverage variance anyway, because is the location of the overage moving? Do you know what I mean?
I didn't put that in my notes. You're building over the basement stair, right? Is this the one you're building over the basement stair?
No, I'm sorry. That's the next project.
That's the
This
next
one
one.
is the steps, where the steps are being relocated to. Part of that, there's 51 square feet of the new stair.
Can you put the plan up? Is it possible to put the plan up? Okay, that's-
Unfortunately, I'm having some technical difficulties.
So why don't you email me in the morning? Just call me in the morning. I'll open it up when I'm at my desk.
You said,
Okay.
the reason I'm concerned at is he thinks he wouldn't have to get a variance, and I think at the pre-meeting, we felt disposed to send him on for a variance if he needed it, so.
And no, I think he needed a variance because it's just a little bit over an existing walkway or something like that. Is that what?
That's correct. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
39 square foot over an existing patio.
Yeah, so he needs to go to the zoning board, Mary Ann.
No, but what he's suggesting is that he's going to eliminate some steps, and that would obviate the variance. But I
He's still
think he needs-
he's still moving it a little bit.
Yes, I know,
It's so
that's what I
little.
was concerned.
I understand where you're coming from. It's so little. If I remember it correctly, it's just the width of the stair is a little wider than a patio.
Yeah, so you're not going to avoid going to.
Yeah.
for variance.
Okay, so you might as well go to the zoning board and you know, talk to Ed about why.
No, it's obvious. Yeah.
Yeah,
We can
you
talk
said
again tomorrow, I guess.
a month there, okay.
And Caesar, to answer your question, we don't see any drainage issues. We did ask just for some information on what's there and just to confirm, but it doesn't look like there is any.
And of course, with the new configuration of the deck, if you have any lighting, you understand you need dark sky compliant.
Understood.
All right, so you're going to the zoning board, and when you come back, you should be ready for us.
Oh, okay, thank you very much.
Oh, we're not finished. Any further comment from the board? Dan?
No comment.
George?
Well, if I understand this correctly, he's moving some stones to alleviate having to go to zoning board as a practical thing, but he can't because the stones are not in the same location that the stair is in, because it's in a different part of the site. Is that correct?
Proposed stair, yes.
Okay.
It's a technicality, George, but
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. I just want to make sure I understood it correctly.
Mike?
So then are we sending him on his way to the zoning board?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
And
yeah, that
Sarah,
was, I raised it was so that he wouldn't lose a month. If he came back next time and said, hey, well, you need the variance, he'll have lost a month.
Right, okay. Sarah, any public?
Nobody's raising their hand and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay. All right, Bill, I guess, oh, you're on the next one?
I am.
Okay, so we're finished with this. We're finished with 129 Rudder. We're going on to number 10, 24 Bonnie Park.
Would you like me to begin?
Introduce yourself again.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Bill Witt. I am the architect for the project at 24 Barney Park. My clients, Jared Edwards and Rachel Gorman, have just recently purchased the property at 24 Barney Park with the intention to renovate and selectively expand the house. It's an existing 1930s colonial. They've got a growing family. It's a wonderful home in a wonderful neighborhood, but it does have some issues with size of kitchens, dens, mudrooms that we're trying to address with this renovation. A result of what we're trying to do here is an increase in the lot coverage of 88 square foot. Now that's because I'm removing gravel, I'm removing basement stairs where I'm installing or proposing the additions. And there's a 301 square foot increase in the proposed floor area for this project. We've obviously reviewed the comments from the consulting engineer and landscape architect. We don't foresee that there's any major hurdles that we need to, or any trouble that we would have meeting those comments. The big issue we have is we have a lot coverage issue and we have a zoning, an FAR issue, excuse me, both existing non-conforming. As I said, the lot coverage is a total increase we're looking for of 88 square feet. A total increase of the floor area. I'm sorry?
Better feed the dog.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. So yes, we're proposing a 301 square foot that represents a small addition in the front of the house, 1 story, a slight expansion to the side of the house at the existing mudroom to accommodate a coat closet, and a slightly larger addition at the rear of the house, which represents a push out of a family room by, I think it's 7 feet. And it would have an expansion of a small bedroom on the 2nd floor, which would also allow for a 2nd hall bathroom. There are currently 4 bedrooms up there, 4 children's bedrooms that share a single bathroom. We'd like to add another bathroom at the same time. I would say that while the FAR issue looks like it's extensive, this house does have a full walk-up attic. Even though there are no dormers on the front elevations of import, the house has a fairly low pitch roof. It's well under the height requirement, but because we have a full set of stairs walking up to the attic, and even though that attic has wall heights of 4 feet, we're required to count 700 square foot of that existing attic in our FAR calculations. There is a small patio we're proposing at the back of this house. Currently, this house has no outdoor living area other than the front porch, which faces South Dutcher. And with that being said, I would take any questions you may have.
The FAR and the coverage are, as you said, they're issues. And the lot appears, a tight lot to start with. I think we would like to see how the FAR and coverage for this property compares to the neighborhood. Because one of the charges to the planning board is you don't want to look different than the neighborhood. And you don't want the McMansion sticking out among other houses.
Understood.
So please compare.
I think if you look at.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think if you compare the existing elevations and the proposed, you would probably see that the small addition to the front of the house is actually quite a nice complement. It doesn't really increase the visual mass of the house at all. In fact, the modest addition to the rear of the house doesn't have a visual impact on the mass of the house, specifically from either Barney Park or South Dutcher Street.
Well, before we go on, before this goes on to the zoning board, we want to be satisfied that the FAR and the coverage are in keeping with the neighborhood. So that's what we'd like to see. Our arborist has made some comments. There's a 48-inch beech. You got to show some root protection for that 48-inch beech. Is a significant tree. And she went through it, and there's tree removal, what trees are coming out, what trees are going in. So you need some kind of report from an arborist or landscaper to tell us what tree removals are planned and what would be the replacement plan for those trees. And we have another undocumented basement here with the basement exit an issue. And not related to the planning board, but it's an engineering issue, and Ed could explain that, please.
Yeah, so the 2 things. You're eliminating a emergency egress to a finished space, and it's just a laundry room, but it is a finished space, so we need to make sure you address egress. on your plan, you have a laundry room down there.
It's not actually a finished space, but I understand there's no
Okay.
usable living space downstairs in that basement.
Well, it's finished space. Children can go down there. Okay, and then the other thing is you have listed in the attic, you have them listed as bedrooms. They're listed and documented as non-habitable space.
Okay. I don't think,
So-
again, this is just coming from plans I got from the realtor.
Yeah, no, we just don't want to carry over something that's not safe.
Okay, so are you suggesting you just simply want me to relabel the spaces upstairs?
The attic space you just relabel,
Okay,
and the basement take a look at and make sure we either have egress or no finished spaces.
understood.
Read the state code. The state code in May was changed to any area that's finished is a habitable space. So
Yep.
we get nervous with that now.
Okay, Ed?
Yep, thank you.
All right, you're in the view preservation district, so it doesn't look like it, but you need to address it and then just let us know that there's no impact. And of course, there's a lighting issue, which you might have heard us mention if you were listening in on the other projects.
Demonstrate the view preservation, just not just a note.
Yeah.
All right.
And by that, do you mean additional photographs?
That's how most of them do it. They go either stand on the neighbor's property or do a view line or something, pencil line or something. Just demonstrate other than a note. That's all.
Understood.
Let me see. Okay. Do we have any comment from the board? Dan?
No comments here.
Kevin?
Nothing further, thanks.
George?
Yeah, the scale analysis is a pretty straightforward thing. It's done all the time in a very formula-based way, and that is required.
Do you mind if I ask the board a quick question?
Let me finish with Mike. Mike?
No further comments.
Okay, go. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, as far as the scale analysis, would I have access to surveys of adjacent properties, or am I expected to walk those properties, determine patio deck sizes, walk in the houses, find out if they have walk-up attics, or am I going to just kind of rely on publicly available information?
Most people use the Greenberg GIS system and use heated square footage. So you'll convert your project to heated square footage, which will be less than your FAR.
Okay.
Good. All right, Sarah, anything from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, Bill, you're all set. You have any other questions?
No, I appreciate it.
The neighborhood comparison and the arborist those are big things. The arborist report. Irvington is very sensitive to trees, and
understood.
So you need to cover that.
Yeah,
and
we're in this process.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, one more. It's not on the menu that was distributed, the agenda. But number 11 is 16 North Astor.
Did you want me to explain it, Caesar?
When Bill signs off, there he goes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I circulated this to everybody yesterday, I guess. And it's just when,
Well, of course, Marianne, I don't receive things from you, so.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. We spoke.
He doesn't. It's really bizarre. He doesn't get my emails. Okay. I thought somebody was going to forward them to you. Maybe I have to ask people to forward them.
Spoke to you about it. I understand it. Go ahead.
Right. But there was in February, the board granted site plan approval for that building at 16 North Astor.
February what year?
Of 2020, just about less than a year ago.
Yep.
And it involved creating 2 residential units in what was previously used as office and retail use. So because there's a creation of residential uses, you need to impose the park and recreation fee. And so anyway, that's what this resolution is. You have to make a finding anyway. So I'll read you the resolution, and then if you have any questions. Whereas in February 2020, the planning board granted site plan approval to Jason Striano to convert a 3-story building at 16 North Astor from an office retail use to a mixed-use building, including one bedroom and one one-bedroom and one 2-bedroom residential units. And whereas the planning board has found that the creation of the 2 residential units will increase the need for recreational facilities in the village, and where suitable parkland or recreational fees cannot properly be located on the site plan, now therefore be it resolved that as a condition of the site plan approval, as required by section 224-72(1) of the Irvington zoning code, the applicant be required to pay a fee in lieu of parkland in the amount of $19,500, $6,500 for the 1-bedroom and $13,000 for the 2-bedroom unit. We don't do this a lot because we haven't had that many creations of new residential units, but it's you have to do it, and then to be legal, you have to make these findings. So that's what this is for.
Okay. Any comment? We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Second. We got the second from George, Sarah. Okay, I'll poll for vote. Dan,
I approve said motion, and I approve, authorize Sarah to sign for me.
Kevin,
Approve and authorize Sarah?
George,
Yes, and approve Sarah.
Mike,
Yes, and I approve Sarah.
this is Caesar. I say yes, and Sarah can sign for me. That completes the agenda. I want to thank everybody that for participating. Mike, I hope the first session didn't change any opinion about staying. And we welcome your addition. And everybody continue to have a great new year. And we'll see everybody. Thank you, Sarah, for all the gatekeeping and the electronics that go into this. And we'll see everybody next month. Thank you very much.
That was
Thank you.
pretty
Good night,
quick,
everybody.
how many
Good night.
matters we had.
Night.
Good
Stay-
job.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Right.